You reach for a box that says 40 count, cotton, plastic applicator, and you don't think twice about it. Somewhere, 50,000 years ago, a woman felt the exact same cramp you're feeling right now, with no pad, no pill, no painkiller, and no idea when the ache would end. And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. She probably dealt with it far less often than you do. In the 1980s, a biological anthropologist named Beverly Strassman spent 31 months living among the Dogon people of Mali, a farming population with no access to birth control, which made them a rare living window into how human reproduction worked before modern medicine. She collected urine samples from 93 women over years to track their hormones with total precision. Her finding, published in 1997, reframed how we think about the entire menstrual cycle. The average Dogon woman experienced roughly 100 periods across her entire lifetime. The average woman in an industrialized country today experiences around 400. That's not a small gap. That's a fourfold difference. And it comes down to one brutal, simple fact. For most of human history, a woman's body spent the overwhelming majority of her fertile years either pregnant or breastfeeding, both of which shut menstruation down almost completely. That means the ancient women we picture wrestling with periods constantly were, in raw numbers, actually cycling far less than we do. But it also means when a period did arrive, there was no modern relief anywhere in sight. No ibuprofen for the cramping caused by the uterus physically contracting to shed its lining. No heating pad. What existed instead was whatever the local environment could provide. Sphagnum moss, sometimes called blood moss, can hold up to 20 times its own weight in liquid and grows across huge stretches of the ancient world, making it one of the most efficient, natural absorbent materials a Paleolithic woman could have reached for. Ethnographic records from indigenous communities on nearly every continent describe the same short list of materials showing up again and again across thousands of miles and thousands of years. Soft moss, dried grass, shredded bark, and softened animal hide, folded, packed, and held in place however clothing allowed. There is no way to carbon date a piece of used moss from 50,000 years ago and confirm exactly how it was used, because organic material like that simply doesn't survive that long in the archaeological record. What we have instead is something almost more convincing. The same solution appearing independently over and over in isolated human populations with no contact with one another. Societies in the Arctic, the tropics, the desert, and the Kalahari all converged on the same basic engineering problem and solved it the same basic way, using whatever absorbent material their land happened to offer. That kind of convergence is what you see when a solution is old enough and universal enough to be closer to instinct than invention. What almost certainly mattered more than the material itself was what happened around it. Anthropologists have documented menstrual huts and seclusion spaces in traditional societies across the globe, and while some of that tradition was rooted in taboo and restriction, the practical effect was frequently the opposite of isolating. These were spaces reserved entirely for women, often the only guaranteed block of time in a woman's month that wasn't consumed by constant labor, childcare, or the demands of a group. Among the Dogon women Strassman studied, the hut functioned as a kind of open, honest signal to the rest of the community. But it was also unmistakably a shared space where women rested together and looked after each other during the one part of the month their bodies asked them to slow down. That's not a small detail. In a world with no anesthetic and no anti-inflammatory, community itself was frequently the only real form of pain management available. And it's one that quietly disappeared as menstruation became something to hide, instead of something to sit through with other women nearby. It's tempting to imagine prehistoric women as constantly overwhelmed by their own biology. But the evidence points somewhere stranger and more specific. Their bodies weren't malfunctioning any less than ours. Their bodies were simply doing what they evolved to do across a life spent almost entirely in pregnancy or nursing. A rhythm that modern life, with its delayed childbearing, smaller families, and far less breastfeeding, has quietly rewritten without changing the biology underneath it. The cramping, the exhaustion, the ache low in your abdomen right now is not some flaw in the system. It's an old process, running roughly 4 times more often than it was ever built to, in a body still keeping time with a rhythm from 50,000 years ago.